Hi, welcome back to ODE YouTube channel. Today I'm here for the review of this interesting pen. This pen is not mine, it is on loan from Luís from the channel The Inky Nib. And so let's take a look at this pen. And this is the Parker IM Deep Gunmetal in chiseled finish. And this pen has a very interesting shape, I would say. Let's take a little look at that. It is a pen that tapers down to both sides. On the top it has this part that is made of metal. All the pen is made of metal actually. It has flat and shiny metal here. Then it has this arrow-shaped clip as typical of Parker. And then it has this gunmetal colored barrel and cap with this chiseled imprint, which is engraving, which is quite nice. There is the end also a shiny metal part, but much smaller than the part that is on top of the cap. On this band we can see Parker and the code Q. And this date code places the pen in 2010. This pen has an interesting feature, and now we're only talking about the outside of the pen. We'll get to the inside in a moment. It doesn't have here anywhere the engraving made in somewhere. So this means that this pen is one of the Parker models that was completely made and assembled in the factory, in Parker factory in China, in Shanghai. So this is all produced there. All the pen is made of metal. As I told you, the finish is quite nice. The cap is a pull or a push fit cap, and it is quite easy to remove, but it closes securely, as you can see. But even when closed, if you try to move it sideways, there is a little bit of play there. Nothing serious, but there is. Then we uncap the pen and we see a section that tapers down and just flares out here on the end, next to the nib on this chrome ring. This chrome ring, this part that flares out, I think it's the place that catches on the mechanism on the cap that will keep the pen closed. Then you have this Parker, Jotter, Vector kind of nib that says Parker only. It doesn't even have the logo of the company. And on the underside you have the feed, plastic feed with the size of the nib, and so it's written there M. The pen unscrews the barrel and you will access all metal threads here and there, and you will access the ink cartridge, or you can put a converter. All Parker proprietary cartridges or converters, or you can put one of the short Parker cartridges there, and then you can also put a second one here just as a reserve. So that works quite well. About something more that I want to talk about is the posting of the pen. The pen posts well, it is secure there, and I would say it's the same thing. I would say it was more secure than when capping, but it also moves gently sideways. But it is a very nice pen. It has a good balance, even posted, but in my opinion it becomes too long. Not back heavy, but a little bit long. About also the writing experience, I have to say that I like a lot the texture of this part, and I think it is quite nice. It's like if it has a coating of a lacquer that is quite nice to hold, and then you have this texture that, as I say, as I grow older, I like more and more pens that have a texture that we can feel, and this one has that texture. Here on the section, this section is not shiny polished metal, it is kind of a brushed steel, and that may be good or not. I find, at least for me, I don't have many problems of a pen to be slippery when they have shiny finishes, but when the finish is more on the frosted side, sometimes I have more difficulties. So I would say this pen can be a little slippery. It's not a big deal for me because I usually don't find the pen slippery, but if there is a pen that I may, under certain circumstances, find slippery, this is one of those. This pen is sold for around 33 euros. It is still available in some stores, and I have to say that this pen has a problem, in my opinion, is that if you leave it for 2 or 3 days unused and kept, the pen will dry. It has one of those ventilation systems just for safety, in case if you swallow the cap you don't die, but at the same way it doesn't really seal the nib section, and I think that's because that little part stays here and it doesn't seal it completely. So I think that is a kind of a fail, because this pen dries out really quickly, and it's not that pleasant. So this pen was released a couple of years ago, but first, before this one, there was another version of the IM, and it was this was one of the colors. This one is all metal, this one is plastic but with metal ends. You can see the design was quite different, and it was from a time when Parker had this different logo, and they went for much more stylized parts like the clips, and so it is a little different. It has kind of a jewel there, and also the same kind of vector or jotter nib. As far as I could understand, it was even called in some places, at least this is what our source, one of the main sources for Parker pens, the parkerpens.net, they say that this was called Parker Vector Mark II. By the way, let me show it side by side with the real Parker Vector, and you can see it has some, this is very dirty, I need to clean it, I know. It has been like this for maybe some years, I have to do something with that, but now I just need to show it. It is kind of an evolution of this pen. I also have to say that somehow this pen, maybe because of the style of the clip, reminds me a little bit of the Parker Premier, because it is also has a cap band, and then it has two end parts on barrel and cap, and then it has a clip that doesn't come from the end, it comes a little bit below of the top of the cap. And when we talk about this Premier, we can really remember, but we have here a very different nib. We can remember the Parker 75, which also has some Cisellé engraving, but when we look at this pen, it looks more like an engraving, and this looks like it was a mold and it was made like that. And of course, when you look at the nibs, we are looking at very different stuff. Now, for some size comparison, I will get the usual Lamy Safari and Parker Centennial Lufold. This is the Parker Centennial Lufold Black that is currently available, and this is the Lamy Safari, the special edition for 2021, the Savannah Green. And you can see it is a little bit shorter than Safari, just a little bit longer than the Lufold. It is around the same size, but it is much less girthier. It has a much smaller diameter than both the other two pens, and that is something you can see here. And it is shorter pen, and the nib is quite small. I think a pen like this may deserve a better nib, but that's my opinion. So overall, what do I think about this pen? I think it is a little bit too slim. I think the finish is very, very beautiful. These may be slippery for some, but it has the jotter nib, which in itself is not bad. It can be good if the nib is good. However, I find that the nib dries when the pen is kept. And we're not talking about 2 weeks, we are talking about 2 days. And that is really annoying. But now let's go for the writing sample. And we have here the pen and paper, and let's start. So this is the, you can see a little hard start because this was enough for it to start skipping. This is the Parker IM. It even has some ink on the nib. I should have cleaned it to have it looking more beautiful. Let me just grab a tissue and clean it a little bit. No, it's better. But sometimes I think it's because it dries on the cap, the ink tends to build up on the nib. So this is the Parker IM Premium Deep Gunmetal Chiseled CT. This is the full name of the pen, and it has a medium steel nib. A little skip there. And the ink that I'm using is the vintage Parker Quink Black. And the paper that I'm using is the usual Rhodia dot pad. And about the performance, just for writing a little bit, jumps over the lazy dog. You can see there are some occasional skips, and I would say this is a little bit sad because this pen could be better. It's not because of the ink. This is a vintage ink, I know, but I've been using it in many pens at the same time and there is no problem. About line variation, this should be a stiff nib, but actually you can have a little bit of line variation, but you need to press it a little bit hard and it stops being comfortable. I think this is a little bit slippery. I don't let the pen fall off my hand. It's not that kind of problem. It doesn't get like this. But what I think is that because it's more slippery, sometimes the pen rotates freely in my fingers before I can really grab it correctly. So this is the line, the medium line, another skip there. Cross strokes. When you press it harder, you can have more ink delivered, and it writes really well in reverse. The nib overall is smooth. If you have a regular Parker vector nib. They are good. It's not that you're going to have a spectacular writing experience, but they are good nibs, they work, and this works. However, it skips sometimes, and most of all, it sometimes hard starts because it tends to dry. About the wetness of the nib, I would say it is wet enough to write with. It's not very, very wet, and Quink ink is not also a very wet ink. And so, this is what I have to tell you about this pen. I think it looks great. It could be a little nicer. I don't like the skipping. I also have to say that because it evaporates so quickly, the ink from the pen, when you have it seated for a long time and you write with it again, the ink dried and you'll find several skippings afterwards. I've been using this pen for a while, so it has been inked and cleaned and inked and cleaned. When you clean the pen and you freshly ink the pen again, you'll get to write really well for a long time if you keep writing. If you stop and leave the pen for 2 days, when you start writing it is dry, and after a while it starts skipping once in a while, as you see there. So what I would change in this pen, I think I would have this same kind of finish there. Even if it wasn't the Cisellé, the same kind of feel, glossy feel this part has there, it wouldn't be slippery at all. I wouldn't say the problem of this pen is the nib, but it is the cap, and I would change the system of the cap for something different. It's not because it is a push fit cap or a screw fit cap, it's because it is not well designed, in my opinion. So, this is all I had to show you today. I thank you so much for watching, and please keep coming for more videos like this. Bye!